Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Just note that this meeting will be recorded and will be posted on the Wheatland County website or social media. And is there any additions to the agenda? Ellen?
Mr. Chairman, there's a number of changes that we would like to suggest to council for the agenda. First off, the 11 o'clock appointment, unfortunately, they're unable to attend today. They will be rebooking for December. So we have changed that out, and Oskana Tracy from University of Alberta will be here to speak about the solar PV at Wheatland County that was put on a year or so ago. She has a report that she'll present in regards to that. So Oskana Tracy. And additions, 2.2G, which was handed out, Mr. Chairman, request for decision, Alice Booth, request for benefits continuation. 2.2H, Growth Management Board Rural Caucus meeting in Edmonton on November 16th. And then under business arising, there was a letter handed out in regards to electoral boundaries division. Or division, I guess we'd like to council to consider that and give recommendations on any changes they want before you sign that. So,
Okay.
I think there's a couple reports that go under Councillor Division 7 and Deputy Ree's report, but they're already included on the agenda, so I think they can just do those as their reports, if that's okay. Other than that, I think that's all I had.
Okay. Any other additions? 2.2I, put down WFCSS conference. And on the next page under closed section 6.2 labor. And that's all I have. Are there any other additions? A motion to accept the agenda. Jason, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we have a 9 o'clock appointment. Mr. Smith is here. It's your turn. Please come up to the podium and turn the mic on if you can. When the little red lights are on, that triggers the cameras to record.
I don't think I need a mic. My name is Russell Smith, former councillor with the county of Wheatland, with the town of Gleason, and the former mayor of Gleason. So I kind of know the rules and regulations. First, do you have the Robert's Rules of Order here, or the Municipal Act? Do you have them present in this room?
All right.
You got to speak up, I can't hear you.
Okay, I didn't have my mic on. We can get a copy of the MGA if you want.
I still can't hear you.
Do you want a copy of the MGA, Municipal Government Act?
Come here.
Sorry about that.
This is Judy. Okay? She's kind of interpret for me,
Okay,
because I do not hear that well, and I do not see that well because I have cataracts, okay?
okay. So did you ask for a copy of the Municipal Government Act?
Sorry, sir. Huh?
Is it the municipal one that you want?
I want the municipal act, and I want the Robert's Rules of Order.
The what?
Robert's Rules of Order.
Robert's
Oh.
Rules of Order, I don't.
It's both books.
Yeah.
The readers should know.
We also have the counselor conduct bylaw too that we adhere to. It's a,
The reason I ask is because in Robert's Rules of Order, which every municipality, government in this country goes under, it must be present at a meeting before it starts. So must the municipal act.
I
Be
believe
present in this
quorum
room.
has to be established before we have a meeting.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, first question. How many farmers are present on this council?
2.
2?
You mean dedicated farmers
No, people that were farmers.
that were farmers?
You know,
Show of hands.
farmers' wives, and so on.
Okay. There'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 anyway.
How many?
4.
5?
Five.
Okay.
4.
4. Okay. How many are using this new pipeline from Standard to Gleason?
On this council?
Yes.
Nobody.
And how many farmers are actually on the water line? How many actual farmers are on the line?
3 so far? 3
There's 3?
so far. Farmers. Farmers
There's
between
3 farmers
Standard and Galician. 3.
that are on the line.
3.
Now, we paid $46 million for this line, correct?
The province of Alberta has, yes.
Well,
Government
that
has.
seems like a lot of money to me for 3 farmers.
It's for the communities of Galician and Standard and
No,
Rocky Ford.
no, I don't want, no, it's from Standard to Gleason.
The 46 million includes the line going to Rocky Ford too.
But it's,
And Azar in the future and Rosebud. But the 46 million right now is money needed to build the line from Standard to Galician and from Standard to Rocky Ford, from Standard to the water reservoir, new water reservoir, and a brand new water reservoir, and a brand new pipeline from the springs in Standard to the water treatment plant. So that's what all that money has bought.
okay.
The next question Mr. Smith has is, how can you, in good faith, without a plebiscite of Gleason residents, vote to build a pipeline of this magnitude?
Was a motion of council. It, there was no money come from the hamlet of Galician per se. There was no debenture put on the residents of Galician, so we don't have to have a bylaw, no public hearing. It's not much different than other business, right? Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
How can you justify doubling the water rates in Gleason?
The water rates that are paid in Galician presently do not cover the expense of producing water. They are
That's your
subsidized.
justification.
What's that?
That's your justification of
It's-
doubling the water and sewer rates.
The water and sewer rates do not cover the actual expense of producing water and treating the sewage. Okay? It has never covered the rate anywhere in the county. They are subsidized by taxpayer money. So
Okay.
council has decided to close that gap, narrow it up. And last I heard, we're still not at recovery. What you're paying for water does not pay the total bill. There's tax money from general taxation used to pay for the water. You're not paying the whole bill yet. Does that make sense? Don't like it, but
Okay. The water comes from Calgary, I guess.
the water
Yeah. Where do you get it
comes from the irrigation ditch. It's from the Bow Weir in Calgary at the zoo. Is
It does come from Calgary.
from the Bow Weir uses WID irrigation works to convey the water to the new reservoir site. And then from there, it's all piped.
Why don't you just say yes?
Okay, it comes from Calgary.
Well, anyway, the rates have went up by, 50%? Yeah. It went from $50 a month to $100 a month. Okay, that's what my bill did.
Okay.
Now, actually it went to 114, but that's minor detail. The sewer goes to the same place. It hasn't changed. Why did it go up?
Staff is, Ellen, Mike can speak to that.
Sure. Good morning, Council. So I can just kind of explain the breakdown. I handed out, I can need a copy here. So what you have in front of you there is a copy of the current 2017 water and sewer rates for all the hamlets, as well as just a comparison of some larger municipalities in the area. So basically, water is taken in at every residence or every dwelling, metered at that time. The rate for that water coming in is $1.68 per cubic meter. We bill that back on consumption use. As well, wastewater, because we don't have any meters, we don't have any flow meters monitoring what's going back into the system. We take a pretty relaxed percentage of 70% of the water coming in. We take 70% of that water and assume that that's what's being returned back into the sanitary system. If you looked at the comparables, it's usually around 80 to 90%. We design our systems to be at 90% return rate on this, but because we know there is irrigation, we know that it's lost through consumption and cooking, that kind of stuff. We looked at 70% as kind of an acceptable percentage to bill back the wastewater. So that is why the consumption rate for wastewater went up, as well as when we increased the water rates, the percentage of the wastewater rates went up at the same time. You also see that there's also flat rates, water debentures, WID fees, depending on which hamlet you're in. Those are all billed back to individual communities. The flat rates are basically for operations and maintenance of the system. Those are consistent if there's consumption or not on a residence. If there's a service to that residence, we charge them for the flat rates because they have the option. They are inputting into that system. They're potentially wearing on that system. So we need to make sure that they're compensating or they're paying towards replacement or operations of that system.
Very interesting, but I asked, why did the sewer rates go up?
Okay, as Through the chair, as the Reeve mentioned, the cost of producing this water is substantially higher than what we're recovering through revenue of both the water and wastewater. We did an analysis the last couple of years, and it varies across the communities because populations are different, cost for chemicals, that sort of thing. But on average, and I'm trying to finalize the 2017 numbers here. We don't have all the invoices in yet, or I'd have them in front of you now. But we're looking at definitely above $2 a cubic meter in every community to produce this water. And in some, it's substantially higher. Rosebud, for example, is upwards of $10 a cubic meter to produce, just because it's such a small population and it is expensive to produce the water up there, to treat it and distribute it at the same time. So that is why the water rates went up, is because we're trying to go back to a user pay system, a cost recovery on the residents that are actually using the service.
Mike, same goes for the sewage too, the treatment costs. Do you have an actual cost on what it costs to treat the sewage? Or?
Yeah, exactly. And with that, truthfully, it is substantially less to treat that wastewater and the costs towards that. I mean, we're offsetting a higher water rate. So if they're using the water, they're using the sewer. So you'll see that we actually recover quite a bit less, or quite a bit more from the wastewater fees, but we're offsetting the higher cost of water with that. So they balance out, and we're still in a subsidy format with that.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Mr. Smith?
Your water or your sewer rate, you said, went up. Let's see, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they redid the lagoon, so that has nothing to do with this. So why, you haven't explained why the sewer rate went up, especially when we're charged the same amount of money for the sewer, or the same amount of water for the sewer, and what comes into our house. The amount of water we get from the pipeline is identical to the amount of water going out. Now, that is impossible.
Mr. Smith, staff had mentioned that 70% of the water coming in is what you are charged on the
I
sewer.
want to see that.
It's right on the bill. Have you got a bill? We could find it, but we could get you to look at staff after. We have but it is 70% you're paying on, and we have stated.
My bill.
Okay,
My bill tells me the same amount of water that's coming into my house is what I am charged going out of my house in the sewer line.
okay, so after you go up and you'll talk to staff and they'll look at your bill, and maybe there has been a mistake made on your bill, or they'll look at it and they'll explain it and find out exactly what's going on your bill. Okay?
And I believe if you check in any town, city, or municipality, they are all doing that.
Could be, but this is Wheatland County, and I'm telling you, that's what we do here. We charge for 70%. So you got 30% of the water we're thinking you're hauling off someplace, watering your grass with it, or we're, as Mike said, we're quite lenient with the 70%.
Because I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the water that comes into my place does not go out in the sewer.
I believe you.
Because I have trees, I have garden, I have
Yeah.
lawns, I have flower gardens, I have pets. That water does not go back into the sewer.
We know that, and that's why we only charge 70%.
Well, I want to see that.
Okay, so after the meeting, after we're done here, you go out the front there and staff will gladly go over your bill and make sure it's correct, okay?
Wow.
Okay, they're the experts on the bills. I can't help you there
I'll take
much.
your word for it right now.
Okay, no, you will go stop there. You have any other concerns?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Anyway, when you look at the price that you have upped our water and sewer for, I've never seen any increase in my old age pension or Canada pension. I have a set budget, and I live on that. Now, yous are taking another $50 a month out of my pocket. I am very upset over that, because I live on a fixed income. I don't believe you people do. So maybe you should try it for a change and see how you like it. That is the problem that you have. You spend money like it's water, and you never give any consideration for the people who founded this country. Now, am I getting clear?
I hear.
Now, you have no policy that I know of to take part of this burden away, and that's what it is. So, what are you going to do about it? Besides nothing.
Council's here today and they're listening to you. And when it comes time to budget time and setting the price of water, council has this information now, and it'll be up to council to discuss it, change it, leave it the same. I can't say what we're going to do because we act as a council.
Okay?
Okay, so
The
you're asking
problem-
council right now to give some serious thought into increasing anything on account of there's lots of people out there living on fixed incomes.
The problem, as I see it, is you are spending way too much money on things that was not necessary.
Okay?
Okay? And if you continue to do that, well, then I'm just going to be going out to my backyard, digging a nice big hole, putting a goddamn shit house on it, and I guess I won't be using your water or sewer. Because I can't afford it. Okay?
Okay, thanks for that comment.
Well, that's what you're doing.
Okay.
And why this pipeline came through, and all it did was affect the hamlet of Gleason.
So far.
It did not affect the farmers, not one. They could take the water if they wanted. They didn't have to because they have their own wealth. Simple as that.
Okay.
So does it affect the farmer? Absolutely not. But it certainly has affected the hamlet, as you call it, of Gleason.
Just to make one thing clear, these price increases in no way affect the new water coming through the pipeline. These increases come long before there was a pipeline supplying water to Gleason.
How many on this council sits on the board of the pipeline?
There's one, two,
How many?
two,
And how many is on the board?
two. Oh, five,
In the,
five,
there's 5. And you used to have 3, or
two,
2.
two votes.
Okay. Now, to my way of looking at it, that's a conflict of interest. As simple as that. Because I am quite positive you get paid to sit on that board, correct?
No. The
You
board
don't
doesn't
get any
pay
money for
anything.
sitting on that board?
We get a per diem from this county for representing the county. We don't get anything from the board. I haven't even got a drink of water yet. We get nothing.
Say yes or no?
What's that?
Did he say yes?
We get no money from the board.
No, they don't get any money.
The board has 2 employees now. Actually, we're going to think of more, so yeah. We have an employee sitting in the audience right now.
So that's just your civic duty, eh?
It is. It's the honor of being voted in by your ratepayers.
Okay. Huh?
I think that just about covers everything.
Do you have any other concerns or comments? Any other comments?
Pardon me?
Do you have any other comments?
Any other comments?
Oh, I don't know yet.
Did you bring your water bill with you?
I think you've got.
Did you bring your water bill with you?
The what?
Did you bring your water bill with you?
You didn't bring your water bill with you.
No, I did not.
Okay, could we,
If you want a water bill of
we can
mine,
get you your water bill.
all you have to
copy.
do is hit your computer there and it'll
Okay.
give it to you.
Okay, we'll find your water bill, your last one, and staff will go over it with you, okay?
Well, I know I got mine from 2016, and I can show you it. And
We
the
got all
water
that
and
paper here.
the water and the sewer are identical as far as what comes in and what goes out.
Okay,
And I know what the cost is per
okay,
cubic meter.
we got all that here. So would you like to go out and with staff now and go over your bill?
Well, I think, this here is your jobs,
To go over your
not
bill?
mine. You should have looked into this before you ever started talking about putting a pipeline in. It's cost $46 million. I don't know why you didn't. I only have one other comment. It's on your protective services. Okay?
Okay,
The protective services have a pamphlet, or you have a pamphlet you put out. It's a real nice pamphlet. There it is. Okay? Everybody see it? Good. Says 2016 to 2020 interim budget summary. And then it goes on to tell you what all you're going to do, and so on. Anyway, I'll come to one area that surprised me. Okay? Under protective services. Would you read that there for me, please?
Continued proactive patrols throughout the county to address public and traffic safety issues, infrastructure sustainability, and basic protection to persons and properties.
Yeah,
You understand it?
yeah.
Okay. What's the last part there?
Basic protection to persons and properties.
Right. Protection of person and property. I am quite positive you know where I'm going with this. There's a tree in my neighbor's yard that is about 70 feet tall, about 2 feet around, big tree. I talked to the arborist, and he tells me that it's going to come down within 2 years. Okay? That is his estimation on how long that tree will live before it falls on my house. Now, are you proactive or reactive?
This tree is on the neighbor's property?
No, it's not. I set on the neighbor's property.
It's on the neighbor's property.
That's correct. It don't matter. You said right here, you were going to look after that. Now,
Should we have somebody go down and look at this tree on neighbor's property, Mike?
I think what Mr. Smith is getting at is the fact that that tree, and I do know that tree, when the arborist was out there, when they were getting ready to do the sidewalks and stuff, they did a bunch of tree trimming. Russell was told at that point that that tree is basically dead inside and it's going to fall on his home in the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So what he's asking is if there's any way that that tree can be removed without repercussions on him or his wife or whatever, and who would be responsible for the removal of that tree.
Mike?
So through the chair, we are aware of this tree. We were made aware of it a few months ago. During the sidewalk trimming, we removed a tree in front of Mr. Russell's house, and then we're made aware of this one. Because we noted that it is on private land, I do believe bylaw is looking into if it is, we have certain allowances under the nuisance and unsightly dangerous grounds, that sort of thing, under the MGA that we can revert back to. But I think they're still making a determination on if this is actually a hazard or something to cause concern about. So I apologize. I don't know where the status of that investigation is at.
So somebody is actively looking into it now?
Correct.
Okay. So somebody is looking into this tree right now, and we're waiting for their determination, I guess, right? So it's, when are we expecting it? Next year?
Through the chair, I can bring an update to the next council meeting if you wish.
Okay. I just heard from staff that there'll be an update at the next council meeting on the progress of this tree. Okay.
only one other thing I want. That's a copy of this.
Yep, give it to staff, please.
Okay?
Yeah, give it to staff, please.
And you can send it to my box office in Galician. And I'm quite positive you have the address.
Yes, we do. So would you like to take time and staff will go over your water bill right now while you're in the office? Do you want to take time right now to go over your water bill with staff while you're in the office?
Russell does not figure that it's his place to do that. As a senior citizen, I know I'm one too. We
Make
pay the
sure,
water.
no.
Does not.
I'm thinking you're misunderstanding. He was saying his water bill is wrong because he's paying 100% of the sewage problem.
He's just saying it's high.
Right.
Because he's on a fixed income, he finds
I
having to
realize
pay
that.
extra is really rough on the pocketbook.
I realize that. But he also said he's paying 100% of the water coming in for the water going out on the sewage bill. And that is not our policy. Our policy is 70%. So if he's paying 100%, his bill is too high, and it should be changed. Okay? So, Mike?
Through the chair, just add, I actually do have a copy of Mr. Smith's bill here, and I can, there is no actual notation on what the wastewater consumption is on this, and that may be where the confusion is. It's definitely at a lower rate, at $1.18, which is what our wastewater rate is, but I can help potentially explain this in a little more detail as far as how we break it down here. And maybe there's an option here to modify this bill so it's a little clearer for all the other ratepayers.
Yeah. Okay. It's a good lesson. Okay. Well, thanks for coming in then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wish to congratulate the two new councillors.
There's 5 new counselors.
Well, the other,
5
many?
new counselors. 5.
there's 5 new councillors?
Yes.
Wow.
Congratulations to all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 new ones.
So, I guess I'm a
Yeah,
little
2
behind
old
there.
ones. 5 new, 2 old.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for coming in.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to let you know that Michael will help Mr. Smith. And also, we do have a program that's been in place for 3 years for low-flow fixtures. And we encourage people to utilize that program where the county will reimburse them for not just toilets, it's low-flow shower heads, low-flow taps and faucets and things like that, so they can reduce their consumption, which is better for the environment as well. So.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? A motion to accept Mr. Smith's report. Amber, any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll go down to the adoption of the minutes. A, October 2nd, 2017, special council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Ben has moved. Is there any questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. And I guess October 5th, 2017, regular council meeting minutes. I guess we'll just go around, continue this way, okay, Tom? Tom? Yeah. Tom has moved to adopt them. Is there any questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. October 10th, 2017, regular council meeting minutes. Is there any questions or concerns? Scott has moved. All in favor? Carried. October 10th, 2017, public hearing minutes, bylaw 2017-19. And I'll skip. Being the chairman, I refrain from making motions best I can. So Donna, your turn. Yeah, Donna's moved. Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. When removing the motions, if I could get you to turn your mics on so the public can hear everybody speak. Okay. 2.1, unfinished business arising. And that's this letter that our CAO passed out. I'll give everybody, since we just got it, a short time to go over it and see if it sufficiently covers what we intended it to cover. Okay. Any thoughts, Amber?
I think it encompasses what we talked about, both the concerns with the actual divisions as well as the process for the final report.
I'm thinking we should have a motion to accept this, and then I can sign it and we'll mail it off.
I move that we accept the Electoral Boundaries Commission letter going out to the appropriate MLAs, the Premier, the Commission, as well as Municipal Affairs.
Okay. Any questions? Jason? Ben, Tom? All in favor? Carried. There, it's signed. Request for decision. Community Enhancement Regional Board member appointment. Page 26. Jason, your turn. Yeah. On page 26, everyone got it?
I request for the decision. I request for decision. I request for decision to have the appointment on the Community Enhancement Regional Board, which would be my division, and I believe Margaret Gawley is the appointment.
Okay, you
to be made.
move, make
I
that
move-
motion.
I move that we appoint Margaret Gawley for the Community Enhancement Regional Board appointment.
Okay. Any questions? Ben, Tom? No? All in favor? Carried. Request for decision, council remuneration review. Page 28.
Mr. Chairman, the next few items are HR related, so our HR advisor is here, and there's any questions that council has can be directed to
Okay.
him.
Welcome. Okay. Okay, so. Ben, page 28, we got the council. Yeah, please.
Council approves the revised legislative policy, section 521, elected officials remuneration policy.
Okay. Tom, do you have any questions? Okay. Scott? I don't know where I'll start. Donna? Any questions? This policy continues on for the next few pages too. Okay. Amber?
Well, I guess I respect the findings of the group that brought forward these recommendations. And I also appreciate the fact that we need to keep abreast of like inflation and that type of thing. Due to the current economic situation, I'm wondering if the board might consider not taking an increase this year. Just because obviously it does have some, even though it's relatively minute, impact on our budget. Those are my thoughts.
Jason?
I agree with Amber. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Ben, you have anything you want to add, or any questions of John? while he's
Just a
here?
caution that we've been through this process before, and in the past, council dealt with their own per diems. That's why I know it's been 3-4 terms ago, we put it out to the public to deal with that so that it takes it away from council making the decision for their own remuneration. Part of the issue was, and some of the other communities or municipalities across the province ran into the same thing where they didn't stay abreast, and then all of a sudden, there'll be a change of council and they'll come in and they'll try to do a catch-up, and the catch-up is far worse than trying to stay current with it. So that was part of the reason we went to the outside group dealing with it. And we have, as council, we have no input into what the outside group does. They get all the information, they go through it, they determine whether or not it's, which to me is far better than me making my own decision on whether or not I take that increase. So I don't have an issue with it, and it's 1% isn't a big issue, and it's a lot easier to deal with 3 or 4 years down the road than trying to throw 3 or 4% in there, and then you really get the ratepayers upset with you.
Okay. I'm going to ask Mr. MacArthur to elaborate on that, on this group. How's it picked, and who knows who the group people are?
Well, there's a number of community volunteers that are involved in this. There's 4 that sit as a committee and review the information that I've provided concerning cost of living variables, and the possibility of an increased cost of living and cost of services, for example, which per diems address. And essentially, the information was presented to the group, and the group picked the 1% figure as being appropriate. There is, as in any group, there's always discussion about what to do, and one of the big concerns was to do nothing can sometimes end you up in a space where, as Councillor Armstrong pointed out, the impact is much greater later on. Just because there's a 1% this year doesn't mean that there will be a 1% next year. It all depends on how costs go and how costs are forecast to go. Right now, the costs that we have are well within the community average. I conduct a survey of other like-sized municipalities and towns to see where they're at. So we're in the group, if you wish, but certainly the decision as to which way to go, based on the recommendations of this committee, lays entirely with council. I have no recommendation one way or the other on it.
Okay, thanks for that. Tom, do you have any questions?
I'm sort of with the perception, and I don't know how we get over that, because if we ever have to, if we're negotiating with any of our employees, we sort of, leadership is always from the top down. And I understand sort of that our hands are tied in this situation, so I'm not sure darned if we do and darned if we don't. I can live with it. I just don't want the perception that we're doing this because of the money, right?
Right.
Yeah, so.
Okay. I guess further to that, John, can you answer that question when it comes to negotiating with staff, what we've been doing for the last couple of years?
Well, excuse me. Reeve Kester, what we've been doing is a very similar process. We haven't involved outside community in the analysis and the recommendations, but we've done community salary surveys throughout the province. Last year, for example, based on the cost of living, we determined not to provide an increase. This year, however, there has been a 1% increase to staff based on cost of living and changes. Overall, it was a wash between where they were at and the way the cost of living changed. There was a minimal impact on the employee in terms of the increase in cost of living. But however, there was a small impact, and it appears that that impact is going to grow a little bit over the next 12 months. So that's why there was a recommendation accepted by council to do a 1% increase.
For staff too? Yeah.
That's correct, for staff, I'm sorry.
Okay. Scott, any questions? And push it again for first startup.
I think it's important that we listen to a group that has reviewed this and take their leadership in it, that these people have put their time into it and recommended it. I think it's important that we hear that and follow that.
Any other questions? Or? Any other question, Donna?
We also have that ability to put in what we, like, the ratepayers are going to see what we're getting paid. We also, if we feel like we want to give back and that we're not taking money from the county unnecessarily, we have the choice to put down what we did and still have the no charge. And they can see where we're giving back. And still, like, I agree with the 1%, actually. It is really hard to catch up. And waiting for better economic times just might not happen for a long time.
Okay. Amber?
I did preface my earlier comment with the fact that I do respect the process for this. And like, I do appreciate that it's done objectively outside of council. Obviously, I think that's a good idea. I will, if it's the feeling of the majority, I will respect that.
Okay. Jason?
I, for one, would like to see the comparisons between the surrounding or whichever municipalities you did compare, just to make a better decision. I'd feel more confident in it if I saw it myself.
Go ahead, John.
I believe this information was presented to the council. It does show the various comparisons. Just bear with me a second here, including the dollar per councillor costs.
Do we still have that package? Could we provide that to our, for information? I don't think we want it for this decision unless council does, but did a presentation.
Yeah, I did a PowerPoint presentation, and the presentation is available on that.
John could do that presentation if council's
Okay.
choosing.
Yep. We sure could. Do we?
I don't have the thumb drive with me, Reeve Kester. If
Okay.
you want to give me an opportunity to get it, I will.
Okay, I'll put the question to council. Do you want to see the presentation on the comparisons before you make a decision? If you do, I'll suspend this because we have a 10 o'clock appointment too. So we could come back in at 10:30, 11 o'clock, 11:30. Well, I don't know when we can
Mr.
fit them
Chairman,
in.
the 10 o'clock's here, so can either fit it in this morning or this afternoon.
Okay, let's do the 10 o'clock. And then after the 10 o'clock, we could do the presentation if that's agreeable with council. Okay, we'll do that. We'll table this request for decision until after we have a chance to view the presentation. And then we will move to the 10 o'clock. appointment. I'll get a little bit of coffee while I'm waiting. Good morning.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm with Community Futures. I'll use my military voice if this goes down. Basically, we're with Community Futures Wild Rose, and Community Futures are spread throughout the province. There's 26 of us. We all cover a region, and for those that don't know our basic coverage, it includes all of Wheatland County, part of Newell County, and we go up to as far north as Three Hills. We go east to Bassano, west to Calgary border, and then south we cover Carsland. So basically, Wild Rose, we have several mandates, one of which, and this is the one I'm talking about, is community economic development. And in our region, we had a program, there we go. We had a project set up, and basically what it was is to see what metal fabrication industry is all about. That was stage one. And we found out a lot of information. I'll get into what stage one was specifically. But basically, we're now in stage two, and we're here to discuss a partnership with yourselves, and we're asking for $3,000 in support for this project. So our current partners are ourselves, then Rocky View County, Community Futures Entrecorp, which is Medicine Hat, and they basically go all the way east beyond our borders. Olds College, Bow Valley College, Town of Bassano, Skill Metal Fabricators, and we're waiting for replies from yourselves and then Brooks and Newell County. And we actually expect Brooks and Newell County to come to us actually tomorrow and let us know if they can be involved in the partnership. So basically, stage one was very interesting. We developed a labor market intelligence. We needed to do that. We wanted to identify partners and determine the next stages. And two deliverables came out. I sent council one of them, and it's this report. This report kind of outlines what was involved, and we don't want to waste, didn't want to waste you having to read, 30-some pages. So I suggested just the most important thing that came out of that, and it was just one page. It talked about the recommendations where we needed to engage government, work with the educators, develop an industry organization, and a strategic plan for metal fabrication. Now, if you're wondering why metal fabrication, and And that's probably the big question. And the answer is that when you look at the federal reports are talking about the growth industries up to 2022, and metal fabrication is one of those that they expect. And that's because largely to do with reshoring we gave up a lot of manufacturing out of Canada, and we expect that to come back. And not only that, we also have the competence in that area. It's a strong competence that we started to give up, but we haven't lost yet. So the federal government has identified that as a growth sector. Our research says the same thing. We have a lot of metal fabricators spread out throughout Alberta, actually. We have quite a strong industry. The problem with the industry, it was heavily reliant on oil and gas. And that's it's quite a serious hit to the entire industry. So what we started looking at is, okay, can they come back? What can they do? And is it completely oil and gas dependent? And it is not. There's other areas that it can expand into. So what happened is, in that, when we were doing the labor market intelligence, we looked at Canadian government report that studied other countries, especially Australia. And Australia their government was very good at taking a single key industry and growing it. It's all about nurturing it, and there's a formula for how to do that. And this report suggested how you go about that. And basically what you need is municipalities need to be involved, and you need support by the federal and the provincial governments, is basically what it said. And that's on the government side. Then you need the educators, because they're going to need to provide the training necessary. And then you also need the industry itself to come forward. So that's what this report said. Yeah, we have all the makings of a growth industry here. We should pursue that. So the deliverables were engage government further, which includes municipal governments, develop industry-specific education. And just to let you know, it's quite amazing when you look at the education. You think we are covered, we're not. The industry themselves are complaining, and quite heavily, that the people are coming out and they'll know one piece of equipment, and if they don't have that piece of equipment, it's a long process to train new workers. And it was quite revealing how much they're struggling. And that's why we brought in Bow Valley College and Olds, because we can cover the full spectrum of their needs there. Basically, it says develop an industry organization and look at a strategic plan how to grow this industry. So we're currently in stage 2, and that's what the ask is to help us. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to leverage some partnerships that we've discussed, and take that and use that to go to the provincial and federal governments and ask them for an additional $30,000. That's what we needed. And right now, we're most of the way there to obtaining that with, like I said, the 2 remaining partners. But here's what we're going to do with that. First of all, we're going to develop a business case to define key action steps, especially because we're going to go from the labor perspective this time. We're going to develop it around how to train labor, how to acquire labor. Then we want to form an organization of the metal fabricators, which was part of the recommendations. And finally, we want to ask Olds and Bow Valley to modify their education programs. And they're very well aware of the needs here. They've been with us the whole time following this, and they've got some interesting perspective on what they can do for education. So basically, what we'll do with that is we'll do the following steps. And I just wanted to show you a breakdown of what we have. Just to let you know, our board still, we're saying cash 3,000. We haven't, we delayed a board meeting because of the weather. So we haven't got that 3,000 for sure, but it's likely. We have the room in our budget for that. And we're going to put 10,000 in kind through a lot of groundwork, which we've partially put in, but there's a lot more. And so you can see the breakdown there of between cash and in kind. Basically, in cash, we're asking for about 16,000 in 46,000 in cash, but 30,000 of that is from the Alberta government, labor, and the federal government through their LMP program. So really what we're saying is we're putting in 16,000 if they'll put in 30,000, and then in-kind support, we have another 20,000 for a total of $66,000. Stage 3. Stage 3 is basically, once we're hoping that we have everything in place to now draw up the strategic plan once we get there. And that would be nice to accomplish that. And my hope is that we could start on that phase in March of 2018. And basically the strategic plan will not only outline, but we want those action steps written in stone so that we can start, and I hate to use that when I say strategic plan, because we know that strategic plan is a floating document and you work with it over time and you modify it, but what we really care about is that the action steps are well defined. And we're hoping we have an industry organization ready to go for this at that time so that we can then immediately start into the strategic steps. So when we say this, it's the strategic plan, it's actually some of the action steps we want to accomplish along the way. So it's more than just the strategic planning stage, it is actually actioning what we need to do. So I know that the Wheatland County 2016 to 29 Economic Development Strategy also saw the need for manufacturing, and specifically metal fabrication has been identified in your strategic plan. And I can see why. It definitely is a great area that we can grow with, and if we can get to the appropriate government backing along with the educators working with this industry, and then the industry themselves helping themselves, we can go a long way. Now, one thing I forgot in stage 3, just to go back, was basically we're not going to come back to the partners that are involved now for stage 3, the financing of that. We're going to actually go to the industry themselves and any of the municipalities that we're not involving right now. We might go back to them at that time to make sure we have enough funding. What did I do here? No, that was, okay, that's it. So I'm now open for questions.
Any questions? Donna?
So is there any plants around here? How
Yes.
close is the closest one?
Yeah, well, you have 2 in Carsland, New Vision and Stella Jones. We have lots more, though, spread out throughout. We can't even find them all, actually. That's been the interesting struggle, is identifying them. They're actually hard. When you look up web searches and whatnot, they come under, some don't even put it under metal fabrication. So this list that we're drawing is still growing, and we're trying to find all those that are involved in metal fabrication, per se. But a lot of them go under that general heading of industry, and then it's really hard to find who they are and what they're doing specifically. A lot of research is involved in that. But just to let you know, we have 59 businesses identified in our region to date, and that, like I said, that continues to grow, especially now that Brooks is likely to be involved, they believe, and them going all the way to Medicine Hat. But I mean, it's not in Wheatland, but there is that room for growth and diversify your economy. And we believe that with our economic development thrust, we really can use the nucleus of what we have, because it's spread out all around your region, but a lot of it, for example, might be in the villages and the towns, but not Wheatland per se, but it's right around there. And if you can form this cluster and get them to working together, we can actually grow that industry, we believe strongly, based on the Australian model and then the Canadian government's view of that.
That's your question. Okay. Any other questions? Amber, sure.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate that you're partnering with education in it. When you reviewed our economic development plan, you probably saw that that's a focus as well.
Absolutely.
And that there's definitely some deficiencies in Alberta, like with post-secondary education. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate that that's part of it.
Oh, thank
because
you.
that's critical, I think, as well.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Ben?
Yeah, from the redneck in the bunch. My question is, why are we getting involved in industry? Why aren't we letting industry find their own level? I know it's not much, but and you said some of these ones you can't find out there, maybe they don't want to be found. Maybe they don't like the interference of government in it either. I know it's not much, and if it's a good industry and it's a growing industry, it should be able to find its own level without the interference of the government.
Actually, that's an interesting comment because Australia was finding the same thing. Why don't you let the industry grow itself? But here's the problem. Government, just by its nature, ends up creating barriers for the industry themselves. That's been proven over and over. And what they realize is you need to get everyone in the room, especially with industry, and find out what barriers have been created. We have barriers in our education system right now. For example, I can tell you that the industry is saying they even have people come to their shops that don't know how to use a tape measure, which has been reported directly. There's a reason for that. The reason for that is our education system and the way that we operate as a government. Trust me, I've been in government for many years prior to this job. Is I do understand that we have to create policies and procedures for everything. We also create rules for everything, but sometimes those rules are they're generalized. The problem is sometimes we don't realize what specific effect they're having. And so the Australian government and other governments around the world have recognized this and said, yeah, if we want to grow industries, we got to find out their pains and help them. Because no matter what you do, if you still present barriers to them and don't remove them, then you're still hampering that industry. So that's why we get involved, partially why. Another thing is when you look at it, a lot of these industries, they don't have the capital that they need. But however, if you can get them working together, which is it's not easy, but if you can rally them around a common cry, you can get them to work together so they can form the full value chain that's required for them to start bidding on higher jobs. And in our region, that's a difficulty. And they do want to grow. I can tell you, there's the company that's our lead is Skill Metal Fabricators on this, on helping us work with their industry. They're saying, help us because we're frustrated. We're frustrated with the rules and regulations, and we know they need to be in place, but help us. Help us with the education programs, and we can start doing more and more. So we're not actually, as we call, I won't say creating and making them work. We're actually just helping enable them. And that's what the Australian government and the Canadian government believes that needs to be done as well.
Any other comments, questions? Scott? Oh, Jason?
As a young person on council, a lot of my friends are going through the stage in their life where they're done post-secondary and they're looking for opportunities and jobs. And with the sudden downturn in the economy, they're having trouble with that.
Right.
So I really like the idea of incorporating the education sector in with the with the metal industry to have that transition from schooling to a job or a job would be great for many kids my age.
Yep.
And I think it's great, and I do understand where Ben's coming from, where what business likes the government, period. Like,
absolutely.
So rather than restricting the government, I give you credit for enabling rather than restricting, and that's the way I see it.
Thank you, and that's actually what it is. It's all about enabling versus that. I mean, we know, I've seen it over and over. You draw a policy up and you think, and I've done this, I've drawn bylaws, policies, and you think you're doing, you are doing a good thing and it makes sense. But the problem is based on the wording, you can actually have some very subtle wording in there that can actually really hamper certain businesses or industries and whatnot. It actually happens all the time. And what you do is you bring in between them and then the educators to bring them forward and actually say, okay, look at what you're missing. And these educators, Olds College has given us a letter of support saying this is excellent because we don't know our own deficiencies often. But let the industry tell them what their problems are, and then then they said, well, now we can change that. So yeah, there's multiple components of enabling, including the education and the government.
Okay. Any other comments? So if Wheatland County was to participate,
Yes.
you would give us a report and improvements we can make to our policies and bylaws, or how we fit with the other communities around us? Is that a given for us, or?
Absolutely. That's what we're hoping to achieve in this, to find out what our weaknesses are, what weaknesses we're causing, and, you know, bring forward those. I mean, we might not bring the suggestions of how to change it. We might just bring forward what the problems are to help out the different municipalities, governments of different levels going forward. We also, I'd like to form a committee of those that are in the partnership and go through and provide these reports and updates and work with that group so that everybody is included in this to understand what we're facing and how we can enable.
Region, okay. Any other questions? I think just one. When I looked on page 86 of our package, I don't know what page it would be of yours. It says, the question is, who specifically should we be interviewing? And there's a short list there. And I thought of one place, but you might have it anyway, so I'll just throw the name out
Okay.
there. Hillview Metals, I don't know if you got them on your list or not in the county.
You know what's interesting? I don't. Like I said, some of these are hard to find, and it's part of it is and the question did come up, and rightly so. Maybe they don't want to be found, but usually they do. The problem is they don't know how to market themselves. They don't know where to put themselves in, especially when you're looking at NAICS codes, which are the North American classification system. They don't know where to put themselves in. They just don't have the information they need to make to get known well enough that we can go on a search and do that. And so, yes, I'm going to add them to my list, so thank you.
They're in a lot of arenas that got billboards up, so you gotta have kids to see them too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thanks for coming in. Council will be talking about this later, I'm sure.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Could I have a motion to accept it as information presentation?
I move that we accept the information as given.
Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, Mr. MacArthur. Okay, we'll have a short break, bathroom break, and we'll give you a chance to get it loaded up, your presentation.
No, I'm still there. Yeah. Nope. Nope. Before anybody says anything, I no longer do Santa Claus.
There we go.
So I apologize for this not being in your package. I have the PDF available that I can ensure that Margaret gets to you post-meeting. Subject to, of course, Alan saying, yeah, it's okay. So we met, gosh, seems so long ago, we met in September, early September, to discuss these particular issues around remuneration for the council. We reviewed municipalities. Here's their populations as known in 2015. So you can see some of them have got a way greater and some of them are lesser than Wheatland County. And then in 2017, this is the anticipated population of the, and there's been growth in a fair number of them. I think there's only one that's gone down. There's our salary comparison chart for councillors. And you can see in terms of what's the salary is shown there is salary as declared in the financial audited financial reports in 2015, and then the 2016 indicates that Wheatland County has grown to be number 3, and others have sort of fallen behind. The dollar per councillor per resident per year in 2015 looks like that, sort of in the middle of the pack. For Wheatland County, the dollar per councillor per year in 2017, they're down to number 4. And the committee, this is the information on how the committee was established. And you will see that the honorarium had a 3% increase. And this was all part of the catch-up that had to be done at that time. And that it was increased by 1.5% effective January 1st. So now we're looking at 1% and we should be at the wash point. And this is the effective date of this increase would be 2018 if it's accepted by council.
Okay.
Okay, so that's how it came about, and you will see that there's been a series of catch-ups, and that's why it looks bad. But at this particular point, the way the economy is going right now, you can anticipate from all indicators are 1.75 to 2.5% increase in the cost of living for the Calgary area. That's based on current economic conditions. If the current situation in the Middle East drives oil prices up higher, that will increase exponentially, anywhere up to 6 or 7%.
Let's hope.
I don't wish war on anybody.
No. Is there any questions? No questions. I believe Ben made the motion. There's no
Just
questions.
through the chair, just another comment toward it. I know the new ones haven't had the experience yet of having the ratepayers coming at them left, right, and center. And over the years, I've developed a knack, whether they like it or not, I don't know, but it works out to, if you figure what you're getting for the job, it works out to between 10 and 11 cents a day. So when someone stops me on the street and goes at me for half an hour, I've told him he's used up at least 4 years or 5 years of his time, depending on what his comments are. So it's just...
Okay. Jason?
I'm just curious. Strathmore has just about 14,000 predicted for this year, correct? And they're substantially lower in both of the graphs. So I was just curious, they're dealing with a higher population, and with a higher population, perhaps more broad of issues.
Well, part of that is that there's a relatively low cost in terms of their expenditures because they're condensed within a very restricted geographic area. There is not a lot of expenditures involving mileage and those sort of issues. That's why it would look like that. How they set their remuneration, I don't know. I haven't got a copy of their bylaws that set the council remuneration for them, so I can't comment on that. I think a better comparison, if I may, I think a better comparison would be Newell County, and you'll see where Newell is. Newell's actually, it's not up there anymore, but Newell County is marginally higher than ourselves. And the next one, of course, is Vulcan County, which is just marginally lower. See there, in terms of dollar per councillor. That relates the actual cost to the individual constituent, if you wish. Yeah?
Answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay, 10:30. Thanks for coming in, John. And we have an appointment with Ms. Field, Economic Development Board Subcommittee.
Good morning, Reeve Kester and Council. Delighted to see new faces around the table. Welcome and congratulations. I'm Marcy Field, and I'm here on behalf of the Wheatland County Economic Development Board. I'm just wanted to fill you in a bit on one of the projects that we're currently working on. So, one of the tasks that was set out to the Economic Development Board in our responsibilities as a board and under our terms of reference is to promote education within the county, to identify and communicate on municipal initiatives related to economic development, to encourage and grow creativity and innovation in Wheatland County, encourage events, programs, and services related to economic development, agriculture, and tourism. So to match this one, what we've come now is we're coming with a request for a $10,000 grant to help us and our partners plan and provide a Wheatland County initiated and sponsored 3-speaker series. We've entitled it Behind the Scenes, How to Create a Successful Business. We're looking at 3 speakers over 2018, starting in February 2018 and carrying through until February 2019. And we've broken it down into 3 things, starting with the speaker, Colin Sprake, who deals with entrepreneurs, so dealing with the individual business owner and entrepreneur, providing background. Then looking at a sector speaker, tourism, which is one of the key growth areas that has been developed in our economic development plan, Roger Brooks. And then bringing in finally Doug Griffiths, who speaks to communities, but on a topic, everything is about to change, something that I believe we are all experiencing in the economy, and it's up to us. We can look at progressing and making our own economy. That's our responsibility, how we move forward. So how do we help create that? And speaking to what David had said previously, it's our ability to bring people together, to bring the entrepreneurs, the business owners within our community, find out what those barriers are, find out how we can assist and grow with each other together. So that is part of it. So we have to date already partnered with Bow Valley College, Community Futures Wild Rose, and the Strathmore and District Chamber of Commerce. We've been meeting for about 5 months, 4 or 5 months on this, starting to look at it. We're looking for further partnerships with other chambers, the province of Alberta through grants, and other municipalities reaching out to them. Currently, and our time frame on this is we're looking to the CARE grant, which is an Alberta government grant, that the minimum request on that could be a $10,000 grant thing. I believe, and Wendy could speak to this better, that this is the possible last round of it. For this one being available to us. And the deadline for that is on November 30th, where we're looking to it. Also, it's been suggested, and we've looked at the granting process through Tourism Alberta, and we also want to create opportunities for future business partnerships that they can get on board and participate with us. So, as I said before, we're looking at a $15,000 ask through the CARE application, but we need to get that in before the end of this month. We're looking hopefully to get approval so that we can move forward and showing the support from here. We're going to be reaching out, showing that Wheatland County is behind this initiative, and that enables us to go and reach out to the other municipalities, the other chambers, et cetera, moving forward. Then we'd be marketing over that. We've currently looking to bring in Colin Sprague, February 27th in Rosebud. And we've looked at Rosebud, and it's a repositioning too from what they're doing. They've got a great theater there to be able to host everybody. They've got the Mercantile for the meals, and we're very excited to see us reaching out as part of that. And my partner, BJ Jensen, who is the owner-operator of the Rosebud Country Inn, reached out to them. And so just the cross marketing with the different businesses already there, and looking at new possibilities. So that's what we are looking for. You have a lot more detail in the package information that was submitted to Council. And now, if you have any questions, I'd like to ask Wendy from Community Futures to come up and be with me, because she might be able to answer some questions that I'm not able to. As there's a bit more background. And it's the joy of having partnerships and bringing people together where you get multiple ideas going.
Okay, questions? Tom? Huh?
I think it says it in the package, but where were you planning on the other two speakers being? Or all at Rosebud, all of them?
That hasn't been determined at this time.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
You're asking for 10,000. I was just curious where that is going to go. Like, what do you need the money for?
So if you look at the budget page that was presented to you, our speakers average out about $10,000 a speaker. Bringing them in is around those costs, so it's to help us cover speaker costs. The meals and facility is covered off through the charge that will be done to participants.
I think on page 103 is their budget. Okay. Any other questions? Question? Comment? Go ahead.
I've heard Roger Brooks speak. He's really good. He's amazing. He's a good choice.
Well, thanks for coming in, Marcy. Council will be talking about this later for sure.
Thank you very much for your time
Thank you.
and consideration.
Thanks for coming in. And motion to accept his information. Ben, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll go back down to request for decision. That one's done. Request for decision, re-educational professional development draft policy. 2.2C. Page 34. I think it's Tom's turn.
Yeah, it is. No.
That's okay. Just turn your mic on and speak up.
I understand, like, do we make the motion to discuss this now, or do we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would prefer that.
Okay.
Then it's easier for council to stay on track. Wanted to just talk about the motion that way.
Okay, I move that we accept the educational recommendation, like the.
Okay. As per council, just approve the
As per-
revisions.
As per policy number 6.43.
3, okay. Now, if you guys want to speak to it, do you have any questions, Tom?
This is the old minutes, following the old minutes. This is, instead of, we're leaving this to the discretion of the county employees, so that we don't have to oversee, we don't have to okay, like, if they're going on a training mission, that we don't have to say, yeah, they need 3 nights there at the training mission, or whatever. This is sort of just streamlining this whole thing, right?
Streamlining it. So when you scroll through it, you'll see the changes are in red to the actual policy. So when I look on page 36, it says council is crossed out, and in red it says of the chief administrative officer designate. So in the past, whenever anybody had a course and it involved an overnight, it always had to come to council for approval for an overnight. Not approval for taking the course or for time off to take the course, just for approval for overnight, because those approvals are given by their superiors. So yeah, it would streamline it. So now that wouldn't require to come to council. And if you, that looks like, is that the only change? That's the only change. I don't know. John is standing up there. Do you have anything? Oh, he's on the next one. Okay. Don't confuse me. I'm easily confused. Okay, so that answer your question then?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Any other questions, Scott? Donna? Ben?
Just through the chair to administration, is this for the day courses, or does this also include the overnights?
This includes overnights for staff, yes. Not for council, just for staff.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Tom has moved. All in favor? Carried. Request for decision, smoking restriction in county buildings and vehicles. Scott.
I move that council approve policy as per option 1, proceed with the approval of policy. Personnel policy.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Donna? Amber? Jason? Ben? Tom?
It appears that it's, like, why, this appears like this should have been done years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all, so we're just doing some housekeeping here?
Yeah, that's what it appears. Yeah. I'm thinking John is here. He wants to enlighten us some too. You're standing there. I'll let you speak.
All I'll just say is that we're just catching up on where things are in the outside world.
Okay, thanks. So any other questions?
I gotta ask the question. It's not the one Alan thought, but because of what's coming down the pike with legalized marijuana, does this cover that also?
Yes,
Or
it
do we
does.
have to
It's
name-
any type of smoking,
Okay.
any type of smoking, including vape.
Okay.
Yeah. It's actually occupational health and safety regulation. So what we're doing is ensuring that the regulation and the policy is mentioned specifically, so employees know that a violation of a policy is subject to the code of conduct and sanctions under that code.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. All in favor? Carried.
I think it also includes crack pipes.
Okay, request for decision, employee complaints, personnel policy revision. And Scott. No, Donna. Sorry. Page 43.
I move council approve the revision of the personal policy to clarify and streamline the process to resolve internal employee complaints.
Any comments or questions, Donna? Okay, I'll give you a couple of seconds. I'll move on to Amber and I'll come back to you. How's that, Donna?
I'm just trying to figure out what's the difference between a grievance and a complaint?
Answer.
The term complaint is any type of complaint. A grievance almost reflects to a collective agreement per se, and we've changed our language to more accurately reflect what the nature is within our structure. It's a complaint. A grievance becomes it has a different connotation in the language than a complaint.
Mm-hmm.
Almost adversarial.
Right. Go ahead, Donna.
No, my comment was just that it was quite reasonable, the chain of command. And the dates, or working days allowed.
The periods of time to move these things forward reflect an amalgamation of and an averaging of all the different complaint and grievance procedures that may be extant certainly in Western Canada. The right to bring something forward anytime there is a complaint process usually is within a 20 working day period. Some are shorter, some are longer, but 20 seems to be the actual median for those.
How many employees do you have?
Seasonally, when at peak season, we run approximately, without counting the firefighters, we run approximately 148. During the downtime, we're approximately, and I have the figure with me because it fluctuates from as people leave and positions change, 98 regular full-time and part-time employees. Regular employees, for lack of a better word, as opposed to seasonal.
Amber? No? Ben? Comments? Ben? Tom? Scott? Donna's moved. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Request for decision, drug and alcohol use policy, proposed revisions.
I move that council approve the revisions to the drug and alcohol policy, employee policy, section 6.7.3.
Okay, do you have any comments or questions, concerns? Jason? Ben?
And I got to apologize because I left my briefcase and everything on the shop at home this morning when I was out there earlier. So my notes for this, and they weren't with the changes that were there, but they were with some changes other than that. So I'll just leave that for the next one. I just thought that the whole policy needed a little more cleaning with some of the repetition and in the. We went, I guess where we went through this when I was on the school board. They keep separating alcohol and drugs. They're all the same thing. I don't know why they have sections for alcohol and they have sections for drugs. They should all fall under the same. They should all be treated the same. And they keep separating the distinction between the two. The issues around safety are the same whether it's alcohol or drugs. So it should, once you've named that in your preamble, you shouldn't have to go back and say that under the one that the first one that I looked at was right at the first of the policy where it says displaying signs and symptoms of substance abuse such as smell of alcohol on the breath, slurred speech. That last part of that doesn't even need to be there because you're talking about abuse of a substance, and it should pertain to everything. When you put it in writing there, you're holding one higher, you're picking one out of the rest of them, and it leaves an open argument for the courts if it ever gets to that point. If you leave it strictly as signs and symptoms of substance abuse and cut it off there, that's for everything. They can't pick it apart. Once you put that other in there, then they can start picking it apart. And but other than that, I'm not going to, because I don't have my notes here, so I'm not going to belittle it.
Tom?
Thinking that with the legalization of marijuana, just the different testing, the amount that marijuana stays in your system for the length of time that it stays, even, how are we going to address, is this sort of addressed in this?
The quick answer is yes. Legalization of marijuana creates the marijuana as a drug as long as it's prescribed. Okay? So as a prescription drug, even right now, you have to identify people who have that. They can't be impaired by that drug. It doesn't matter whether it's Robaxacel for muscle relaxants. It doesn't matter whether it's any other over-the-counter drug that causes drowsiness. All of those things you can be impaired by, and the policy is applicable. So a person can come forward, and we had one recently within our structure come forward, who was on a marijuana program, who has since ceased the program because it didn't find it beneficial. But they self-identified that they were on the program, and that's what we expect of the employees. If an employee has an addiction problem, we have a responsibility under the human rights to accommodate them to the point of undue hardship. So what that means, if they're self-declared addicts, we have to try and identify ways dealing with them in terms of the policy. This policy itself reflects the current state of the law in Canada. This policy was developed before my period here. The purpose of bringing this forward is that the definition of safety-sensitive positions in the old policy was a way too broad. There was too many positions that were thrown in there, and I don't know why. There must have been a motivation at the time, but all of those ones that are stroked out in red are not within the context of a safety-sensitive position as identified by the Supreme Court of Canada. There are a couple of additions there. The coordinator of emergency services and the deputy fire chief have been added. They are in safety-sensitive positions because of their roles and responsibilities in emergencies. They're actually on site and doing things that could create major issues. The rest of the ones that have been stroked out, there's no relationship to a significant and serious threat to the public.
Through the chair, that was one of my other ones, was when I went through that, my question to your comments just now is, a bylaw enforcement officer is not a safety issue if they're on something that makes them act outside of the norm when they're out and about?
With respect, through the chair, we don't have bylaw officers in the Wheatland County.
Okay, that's why
we
they're
have
out.
peace officers.
Okay,
So
and
that you
they're
will
out.
note that the peace officers are there, but not the bylaw officers. These are specific titles of positions.
Oh, okay.
Your question answered, Tom?
Just a follow-up. If I'm applying for a job with the County of Wheatland, would be I assume there's drug testing if I'm going to be an equipment operator. If I'm test positive for methamphetamines, I would assume that I'm not going to get the job. But what happens if I test positive for marijuana? This might not have anything to do with this, just a question.
Well, you're going into the realm of hypotheses, but I can say that if you tested positive for marijuana and you hadn't declared that, when we asked the question, is there anything that we know about your health condition that we should be aware of relative to safety, health and safety, or relative to accommodation within the, and what I mean by accommodation, for example, I need special chairs to get up and down, or I need special ladders or lift devices or whatever. If it's not declared at that time, you wouldn't get the job if we discovered it. Okay? And I will be blunt. There has not been any testing in the last 2 years. The reason for that is because everything was up in the air in the courts, and we didn't want to end up in another challenge ourselves, spending money waiting for the courts and spending money on the legal team. Now that the courts have made their decision in the Supreme Court in Suncor in Alberta, unlikely to be overturned by the Supreme Court, it will be ongoing starting in the new season. And the people returning would be expected to qualify, and there's also options if we so desire to random test. Right now, we would test for reasonable cause. If we suspected somebody was drunk or high when they ran a vehicle into a telephone pole or something, there would be a test. We haven't had those because our employees are responsible and caring individuals.
Okay, any other? Okay, Scott.
I'm just looking at Schedule A here. I'm just trying to figure out, does this apply for everybody, or is this the stricken ones it doesn't apply to? I'm trying to figure out the difference, why.
Those are the identified safety position, identified sensitive safety positions, those positions where there's significant risk. And that's what it apply to. The policy in terms of testing in a reasonable cause situation could apply to anybody. For example, myself, if I was driving a county vehicle and I had an accident and there was suspicion, I could be tested. However, these particular positions would require ongoing monitoring, and you will see that there's a cost involved in the actual recommendation.
Okay, Donna? Amber? Jason? Ben? Okay, Tom moved? Sorry, I'm gonna have to write it down on paper. All in favor? Carried. Ah, 11 o'clock, we'll go up, we have an 11 o'clock appointment. Tracy, please. Oksana?
Yeah, it's Oksana. I'm going to introduce our presenter. And before I do that, I want to explain the project because of the 5 new councillors that maybe aren't aware of our project that we've done with our solar panels on our east wing. Last year, midsummer, we applied for the municipal solar program. We were applying to the province, and the funding organization is actually called the MCCAC, and that stands for Municipal Climate Change Action Center. Ultimately, we ended up with I don't remember the exact amount, but it's around 20%. Yeah, Oksana will have that. Around 27% funding for the project, so that helped reduce the costs. The project was completed about this time last year, and it's been up and running since I think we had our first data in December 16, so it's almost coming up the full year. And as I said, and I'm sure that some of you have seen the solar panels on the south-facing roof. It's out there for the public to see, and we want to, as a county, be leaders in environmental issues. At any rate, I want to introduce Oksana Tracy. She's a graduate this year of Masters of Science in Sustainable Energy Development. That's a program that they have at U of C. So she's got her master's now. As part of her study, or course, she studied our solar system. Basic. Yeah, I know. Our solar energy system. Yeah. Yeah, not a problem. To provide a more realistic view on what the recovery costs are going to be, what the payback time will be for the costs that we had on it, its actual performance. She's currently consulting in the area of feasibility and performance monitoring of renewable energy systems, and has 15 years of experience doing that, so yeah. She's also a professional engineer, registered here in Alberta, and she has her Bachelor's of Science degree in Chemical Engineering from the University of Calgary as well. So, Oksana?
Yeah, thank you.
It's all yours.
I may need some help to get the slideshow. Is there, because when I press it, it just goes blank. Okay, so, but they can see, so I'll have to just come out of the slideshow, I guess,
Yeah.
and just do without animation, which will be fine.
If you click on that one, will it go to full size? No, it's because it's a different. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's a different, anyways, we'll, just won't have the screenplay. So, good morning, and
Good morning.
thank you for having me here, and welcome to the new council. Dave's already kind of covered the background, but basically about a year ago, oh, perfect. So, what is this? Okay, so about a year ago, I was looking for a meaningful project to do as part of my master's degree, and I reside in Strathmore, and I've also lived in rural Wheatland County. And as you're aware, I'm sure the county has a lot of sustainability initiatives on the go. So the solar project was one of them, and we decided to study it. I couldn't have done this project, obviously, without Dave and Mike, and also had a lot of help from Skyfire Energy. They're the company that installed the system. Bit of background, and here so you can see some of the numbers. So it's been in operation since December of 2016. This is the total cost, and this is the rebate here. It's a 60 kilowatt solar PV system, and about 65 megawatt hours per year was the projection that it would make. So the key questions we're looking at answering here is, how does solar PV technology actually perform here at our location? You think it's an obvious question, but there's actually not a lot of studies out there, or none, for the larger PV systems, because Alberta is just starting out on the road to adoption of solar PV on a large scale beyond residential. And of course, what are the economic and environmental benefits? So, getting back to the Alberta Municipal Solar Program, why is this important? Of course, there's a large investment by the county, but also the province at the provincial level has, and this number here, $44 million in provincial incentives, is just for the micro generation portion of it, but there's a lot of incentives out there. So we would like to know for sure that this technology works and performing as designed and has economic and environmental benefits. And Wheatland County's project was the largest last year. The program first started operating in 2016, so you can see. But since then, the province has removed the cap on the size of the projects, and this is a snapshot of the 2017, what's going on here. So a lot of large Calgary facilities are also getting solar PV. Sorry? Okay, sorry. Yeah, solar PV installs, and you can see that the size, the total of 2016 projects was about 200 kilowatts, and now we're more than 10 times that for 2017. So it's important to know that this works as we hope it does. So how did it do in a snapshot? Since December 9th, 2016, when it first came in operation, we've produced over 70 megawatt hours. So this is running about 13% higher than expected. And we already exceeded, although the year's not up, we already exceeded the 65 megawatt hour forecast. So great news there. And in terms of GHG emissions, they're directly tied, obviously, to the amount of electricity that solar produces. So we've saved over 60 tons CO2 equivalent, and again, exceeded the forecast for the whole year. And you can see on this graph that the orange is the actual electricity production on a monthly basis, and the blue is the projected. So in the winter, we were below forecast, and it was primarily due to the effect of snow, and also we had 18 modules down in February, March, and I'll get into more of the effect of snow a little bit later in the presentation. So what affects solar PV performance? Well, obviously the design, but weather is also crucially important, and mainly the amount of solar radiation that we get in that UV range, but also temperature, snow, and shading. Shading was not a factor in our case because we're kind of in a wide open area here, so no trees to play a role. So when it comes to design, this really determines what you can expect from a solar PV system. So how many modules, we have 215 in this case. The roof pitch, which is quite low in this case, but still was the optimal design. So 8-degree roof pitch we have here in the building. 4 inverters, and it faces south, which is optimal. And as a result, this was the forecast that was generated before the system went into operation. So how did we do in terms of solar irradiance? Well, again, blue was the forecast and orange is the actuals. You can see for every month except April, we've got more sunshine or more solar irradiance than expected. About 11% higher it's running so far. And this here is some historical values. So the red is what happened this year so far. The blue is the 10-year average curve from a weather station here nearby. And then the orange is the satellite-based forecast that was used in the software when this was designed. So as you can see, we kind of blew it out of the water in the summer. As you know, weather was great. The sun shone a lot, so it was good to have a solar PV system on hand for that. And now here's a little background. So we here in Wheatland County are actually located in the prime solar PV potential area. It's as good as anywhere in Canada, as good as Southern Ontario and many places in the US, much better than Europe. So it's a great location to have a solar PV system. And the unique part of this project, which doesn't happen very often, is that there's an actual Agriculture Canada weather station located just a couple hundred meters west. There's a picture here with the building in the background. So it's very rare to have accurate local data to know exactly how much solar irradiance we're getting. But in this case, it's actually available, and there's historic data, so that makes the study that much more valuable. And there's not really much out there in terms of this kind of work done before in Alberta. The temperature is another factor that affects solar PV performance. And what it's important to know here is that a solar module is running on average 20-30 degrees warmer on the inside than the ambient temperature. So when it's hot out, that actually brings down the efficiency of electricity generation. And this can be clearly seen in our system, especially here when the temperatures were warmer in the summer. You can see the clear downward trend in the amount of power we're generating per unit of solar irradiance that's coming in. And then snow, of course, an important factor, especially because we have winter here 6-7 months out of the year. You can see on this graph, so in blue, we have the electricity that's being generated daily by the solar system, and in orange is the amount of solar irradiance that's coming in. And you can see most of the time, this is just over the winter month here, and this graph, most of the time they're proportional to each other. The more solar radiance you get, the more electricity. But here this gray line shows precipitation. So you can see following a snowfall, a significant snowfall here, the sun comes back out, but for several days after, we're not making any power. And that essentially illustrates very clearly what snow does to solar PV. And Nate in Edmonton did a study, a 5-year statistical study where they had the system here at different angles, and one side they cleared and the other one they left as is. And what they found over 5 years is statistically for low angles like ours, it brings down the electricity production by 17% on average in the winter. But over the year, it only works out to 4% reduction, because in the winter we're not making that much electricity anyway, because the days are shorter and we don't get as much sunshine. So overall, the impact isn't huge, but we did see it in the winter, definitely here. And I was driving by the building on the weekend on the way to a hockey game, and I thought this would really illustrate this even more. You can see we have snow sitting here and here, and this is the snapshot of the monitoring system. And these modules here are making virtually no power, while the rest of them, the sun's shining and they're producing electricity. So another good illustration of what happens. So now to economic benefits, and this is where it gets complicated, as any of you who have tried to understand your electricity bill in Alberta here can attest, and it gets even more complicated for commercial customers. So in blue here, we have the consumption, electricity consumption here at the building before we did anything, and so this is 2016. Then in orange, the orange bar is 2017 electricity consumption. And then this gray bar is what it would have been without the solar, because we're consuming most of the solar inside the building. So on average, if you look at the billing, the county's paying about 11 cents per kilowatt hour all in for electricity in this building. This is energy, transmission, distribution, all the other fees and taxes. So what happens to the solar power that's generated? Well, most of it gets consumed right here in the building. Anywhere from 88 to 100% goes to the electricity systems here. And then during spring, summer months, there can be some excess generated, and that goes into the grid. The interesting part is here, so when we use the electricity right here in the building, we save about 6.4 cents per kilowatt hour. So not the whole 11 cents, but only about half, a little bit over half of that. And I'll show you why that is later. But then when it goes into the grid, only get wholesale electricity price, which has been running about 2 cents. And we're still working on that issue because we should be getting more. So it's a part of ongoing discussions with NMAX. But that's what it is right now. However, the percentage that's going into the grid is very small. So really, it doesn't make a huge difference to the economics. So when we did look at the simple payback calculations, we just used this 6.4 cents because that's what we really save when the electricity goes into the grid, into the building, and then the investment after rebate. And with that, it takes at the current electricity prices, which translate into the 6.4 cents per kilowatt hour, it takes about 19 years to pay back the investment. Now, without the government rebate, doesn't pay out at all over the 25-year life cycle, guaranteed life of the system. So it illustrates the importance of government subsidies and promotion of renewable energy. And now, just to talk about why we don't save the entire 11 cents per kilowatt hour. Well, so this is, again, the consumption. And you can see that it dropped, and I forgot to mention that it dropped significantly, not only due to solar, but also due to an energy efficiency retrofit that took place here in the spring. So you can see the electricity consumption in the building dropped to less than half of what it was in 2016 due to solar and the energy efficiency retrofit. But the bill didn't. The bill is more than half of what it was. And this is primarily due to the transmission distribution charges, which for a commercial customer, especially like the county, are essentially fixed. It doesn't really matter that your consumption is less than half, you're still paying almost the same amount. And that's just the reality of electricity billing in our province and in most places around the world. So obviously the economics of such a project are highly dependent on electricity prices. So just show some sensitivity. This is pretty low, 6.4 cent savings, but if they were to go up, of course, the project pays out a lot quicker and pays out even without the rebate that the county has received. Now, what is going to happen with the electricity prices? Of course, nobody has a crystal ball, but it's a pretty safe bet that in the short term, they're going to stay low. And that is because, and I will show you some slides later, the supply greatly outpaces demand right now in our province. And also, as this graph here from the government of Alberta illustrates, there's a cap in place on a retail regulated rate of 6.8 cents per kilowatt hour, and this is to deal with the transition to the capacity market that we're currently undergoing with our electricity system. So you can see here, this transition from light to dark green is where the cap is. And these are the current regulated rates, and that's a retail rate, and the wholesale is actually about half of that, so extremely low prices, and they are likely to stay for the next couple of years, and I will show you why. So this is the demand-supply situation in Alberta right now. All these together here are the supply from all different sources of electricity in our province, and this blue here is the demand, current and projected. So you can see there's a lot more supply out there in the market than demand. And that is the situation in Alberta and Canada-wide. I have a graph for it too. So you can see this is the demand growth for electricity in Canada in general, and that is on a downward slope. And that is the situation not only in Canada, but in all the developed world. That is because of the aging populations, energy efficiency measures, and really it's the developing countries that are driving electricity demand. But in the developed world, it is likely to stay the flat or decrease over in the immediate future. However, in Alberta, with the planned phase out of coal by 2030, the prices are not going to stay as low as they are now. There's no way, because we're going to take 40 to 50%, 20 to 30% of the current coal capacity off the market. So that is going to increase the prices in the long term. So conclusions, there's undeniable long-term environmental and economic benefits of renewable energy systems, and our resource here for solar is very good. It exceeds all projections right now. So it's definitely beneficial for the long-term outlook to continue operating and installing these systems, and we will see more and more of them. There's no doubt in my mind. Electricity prices, although they are low in the short term, will rise and will make the economics better for these systems in the long term. Now, there is some recommendations going forward. I mentioned the energy efficiency retrofit, and there's some synergies there. Perhaps the monitoring of the solar system could be incorporated into the existing building management system, and also the whole energy efficiency retrofit. Perhaps it would be interesting to look at the economics and the performance of that in conjunction with the solar as well. So that's kind of a future idea. And there's ongoing discussions with ENMAX, and certainly there's some potential to improve the economics through contract negotiations, to improve how those graphs look for transmission distribution costs and such, and the rebates from the microgeneration credit as well. And with that, if you have any comments or questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any questions or comments, Amber?
I just have a question, if you know, like the equivalent kind of carbon footprint for producing the solar panels and for like transporting them here.
Most of it, I don't have the number here, but if you look at it, and that's called like the life cycle impact assessment. So there's been lots of studies done on all energy generation methods, right? And solar is one of the most beneficial over the entire life cycle, because all of the emissions occur during the manufacturing phase, because most of these are silicone systems for solar PV, and it's an energy intensive process to produce solar grade silicone, but it stops there. And especially if you incorporate recycling of the panels, which they have a long life, and there's definitely a lot of solutions to recycle and reuse the material, the footprint of the solar PV system is one of the smallest of all and it's always positive. So because the life cycle is long and the emissions occur upfront over a short period of time, and then the fuel is free. So the operation of them is emissions free. It's just the manufacturing process that drives that footprint.
Do you know an approximate time frame for when like the reduction from the energy use offsets the manufacturing?
No, but I can look that up, because it depends on the study, right? And few of the studies, because the recycling processes for solar PV technology are kind of just in the developing phase, because most of these systems have anywhere from 25 to 40 year life cycle. They're just starting to recycle them. So those numbers, even if I could find you one, probably will change, because it's still being studied really as to what that should be.
Okay, any other questions? Ellen?
Just wanted to make two notes, just for the new council. When we designed the addition on the building, does have a south sloping roof, and that was designed to have solar. We looked at solar originally, and solar was not feasible. It was like a 30-year payback. With the grant, it made it become, like Scanna said, 19-year payback. So we felt it was important, and council felt it was important as well, for us to understand the real paybacks, because you hear a lot of different stories out there. This is a real live example, and we can monitor it, and we do have a monitor in the lobby here. I'm not sure, it was off this morning. I think it shuts off at night, but during the day, so people can actually see live how much is being produced. One of the other things for council to know is that we just signed an agreement going out a couple more years. So I think it's 5 years out for natural gas and power, and the prices continue to go down. So that's why we're securing long-term pricing for the county on that. So that only drives that return on investment back a little bit more. But for your average consumer, I think they might be paying more than 6.4 cents on a lot of the contracts out there right now. So anyhow, just a couple thoughts.
Okay. Jason?
With the phase out of coal, will that not increase the manufacturing cost of the solar panels?
They're not, none of them are manufactured in North America. So they're mostly in Asia. And actually, an interesting trend recently, originally they were all coming from China, and China had huge incentives, mostly for their own solar installations, but also the rest of the world was benefiting from huge decrease in solar PV costs. Like, they come down to a quarter of what they were 10 years ago. But there were tariffs imposed on China. Well, now there's a case in the U.S. actually that they're trying to impose tariffs on elsewhere in Asia. And in the short term, that has driven the cost back up a little bit, because the manufacturers, and we're kind of tied to the U.S. market. This is U.S. tariffs I'm talking about. The manufacturer or the installers went and stockpiled the cheap modules. So it's kind of an ongoing story here. I think the decision is supposed to be made by the end of this year on tariffs in the U.S., and that's going to affect us because it's all one market. But there's very little manufacturing actually happening in North America.
Okay, any other questions? And Tom?
You mentioned that there were 14 modules that were down, or 18 modules?
18, yeah, one string, basically.
Okay, so what happens with this 2 years down the road that 40 modules go out? Like, who's responsible for this?
Well, and that's why I was mentioning what happened with the 18 modules. I think noticed it right away. Is just they were having an issue with figuring out how to bring them back. They went to sleep, I think, and it was a hardware issue that took a little while to solve. There is monitoring. Like, I have an app on my phone that you can see if that happens, and there's lots of tools in the software to detect it. But like you mentioned, it's not anybody's job description necessary to look at it every day, but there is a building monitoring system that has been recommended as part of the energy efficiency audit, I think, or just in speaking with the author of the energy efficiency audit as an option for that building monitoring software to incorporate the solar system and highlight, if something goes wrong, bring it to attention right away.
So even with today's technology, if we don't use other people's money, these things do not pay for themselves. Is that like basically a 25-year payback would be a horrible idea for me?
Oh,
because
absolutely.
I'd be long time dead before this thing pays back, right? So we still have to take other people's money.
It's a little bit better for a residential customer because you will save more money. What happens is with the commercial customers pay a lot more of the cost of the infrastructure to have the grid essentially functioning. For a residential customer, the transmission distribution costs are more variable, so your payback would be better as an individual than it is for the county. But for sure, that is a challenge, right? Because our economy is not set up to pay for pollution, right? So it's cheaper to burn coal and pollute than it is to put up a solar. And the world as a whole is struggling with this issue. So.
Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead.
So when the solar panels reach their life expectancy, it would be up to the council to choose to continue on that program. And say if there is a government change and they cut subsidies to that industry, it wouldn't make sense to carry on, would it?
Well, so this rebate was upfront, right? So it just went towards the capital. So it doesn't, we're not getting anything from the government to operate them. They don't cost very much to operate. So the rebate was towards the upfront capital installation costs. And the manufacturer guarantees that after 25 years, they will still make 80% of their initial power rating. So, and solar systems these days are expected to last longer, more like 40 years. The guaranteed life is 25 for these modules. Some newer ones are 30 years. So, you know, I'm not sure how long they will last, and there's definitely warranty towards degradation and stuff. So I think it's hard to say what the decision in the economics is going to look like 25 to 40 years down the road. But there's no reason to discontinue operation now that it's installed. You're good for 40 years, or 25 at least, but more like 40, the studies are showing, so.
Answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, if you have any other questions, I can stick around for a little bit afterwards.
Okay, thanks so much. Motion to accept for information. Ben, all in favor? Carried. 11:30, we have an 11:30 appointment. Of Mr. Stone here to presentate for Strathmore and Wheatland County Christmas Hamper Society.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Some may be familiar with me because I've been into the council and presented on a couple of other projects that I've been working on it one or two times through my 12 years that I've lived in Strathmore. But I like your new configuration from the last time. I think it was more flat, so it's almost the round table, so it's nice.
Well, when do we get it full?
So first, I'd like to say thank you to this mostly new council for asking us here today. And when I say us, my co-partner over here is Jean Boothfer. She really is known to me as Jean Christmas. She's the heart and soul and my secretary because they call me the chairman of the society. I'm also very proud and have a lot of pride in providing the history and the information to this council for the Strathmore and Wheatland County Christmas Hamper Society. The original concept was first born by the Happy Gang. That was back in the year 1981. And the idea grew rapidly, and by 1985 it became a society known as the Strathmore Christmas Hamper Society. Over these 35 years, there have been a lot of changes, but mostly the most prominent one is the need for hampers. It is growing almost exponentially every year, and there's a great need out there. Also, there was a name incorporated, a change last year, and it is now known as the Strathmore and Wheatland County Christmas Hamper Society. Our mission statement that we live by and are guided by is to provide assistance to all the needy by distributing food and other necessities at Christmas time. Our goal is to provide a generous amount of food, products, and gifts for children 18 years and younger. It is also an objective for us to supplement the family's food budget well into the month of January. The society that we have is in three distinctive groups. There is the screening department, who take all the calls and required information for qualification of a hamper. We have a well-proven application and screening process for families in need at Christmas time. The process meets the guidelines of other charitable food banks. The protection of personal information is paramount to the operation of our society. The toys department. The toys department then takes the information from the screeners and they fill bags with toys for the appropriate aged children. And then, of course, there's the food department, who gather, sort, date check, and finally box foods for the appropriate size families. Quantities for the hamper are divided into 3 distinct family sizes and boxed up for distribution. They are in family sizes of 1 to 3 person, 4 to 6 person, and 7 to 9 persons. Each family size is allocated different portions. Some of our statistics from last year, 2016's campaign. Screeners, they received and processed 247 requests by phone before the cutoff date. Strathmore received 186, the county 11, Gleason 25, Clooney 5, Standard 3, Rockyford 5, Hazar 6, and Carsland 6. Then they processed another 13 calls after the cutoff date for a total of 260 applicants. Toys supplied 326 bags of toys to 157 families. Each bag had an estimated value of $80. We in the food department had 162 1 to 3 family calls, 94 4 to 6 family, and 4 7 to 9 people. This amounted to approximately 1,300 boxes of food. Mr. Eicher can attest to that. And this also was the handling of 33,000 items. Our charitable society is supported by both the town and the local county councils. As well, all the service clubs, the schools, the churches, the businesses, and individuals of our communities. We are a registered society, adhere to provincial and federal charitable guidelines, and provide receipts where applicable. We have our own bylaws and policies and are accountable to a full board of directors, which consists of the Wheatland and Strathmore FCSS. We are always looking for volunteers and also for new ideas to keep our society running smoothly. Our volunteer base is about 120 people, with total hours of last year reaching 2,975 hours. Last year, we incorporated the idea of the Stuff a Truck as a kickoff. We will be doing that again this year, manning 4 locations at Sobeys, Walmart, Co-op, and No Frills, promoting to fill a truck with food, gifts, and cash. This is taking place on November 18th, recognizing, of course, November 11th and Remembrance Day. Our targets for the 2017 campaign coming up is, again, 260 hampers. We have an approved budget of spend of $146,000 this year. That's divided into a $97,000 on food, $32,000 on the toys. We are experiencing some growing pains because of the amount of hampers that we're having to deal with in both the toy and the food departments. The toy issue, I think we've been able to resolve that by buying a bunch of shelving, and we can start to now layer the amount of bags that we have there. But the pavilion is close to its capacity at 260 hampers, which, again, Mr. Eicher can attest to. We had a heck of a time last year boxing 1,300 boxes and getting them into position, but we did make it work. I think we are open, of course, to all sorts of ideas on how to do this, but I believe we're just going to have to start to tier it also and get some more shelving, which I'd like to talk to you about because I remembered from last year, which at my age, that's quite amazing. You mentioned something that you might have some shelving, Tom, so we've got to do something. We just are running out of room, and that's a big pavilion. So I will say that we live in a tremendous community. The support we receive from the town and the surrounding county is simply overwhelming at times. It's already started, and we only kicked off yesterday. Money's pouring in, donations are pouring in, food's pouring in. It's incredible. If this council would like to have a follow-up after this year's campaign to know how we did, I am certainly welcome to come back and speak to you again. You guys have actually got me going. This is my first presentation, which I expect to be about 8 or 9. I'll get better at doing this once I get into about the third one. I'll get over the coffee jitters. Please don't hesitate to call me, 901-8999. I am open at any time. If you would like to share your time or provide ideas to the Christmas hamper, again, please drop us a line to the Strathmore or the Wheatland FCSS. In numbers, you guys should probably know that. So that's my presentation. And if you have any questions, I will try to answer it. And if I don't know them, my partner over here does, I'm sure.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any questions? I got a couple. Okay. The county residents, I know our FCSS gets a lot of phone calls for the Christmas hamper. And FCSS has requested that our phone number be put on your
on the posters.
Posters and stuff.
Got that request yesterday from Lynn.
Yeah, but I think that request is a year old at least.
Yeah.
And it always was WFCSS's phone number on, so a lot of people don't throw these phone numbers away. And I see the new posters here are out again, and still no mention of WFCSS.
And last night it was brought, I got the question from Lynn, and I got the posters last night and seen that, Glenn, that it wasn't there. So we've discussed it at our opening meeting last night, and we're printing new posters. Unfortunately, our person that does the posters is away too, so we're doing some backtracking to get that into place to do the recognition that's due. I thought it had been taken care of because I remember last year it was brought up also.
Right.
It's one of those unfortunate things that all the templates and everything are in certain people's hands and they get rolling, and I'm afraid this one got away on us, but corrections will be made.
So they'll be done for the new printouts coming up this year? There'll be some in this year,
There's
all the
going to be some
posters
more,
done?
because on Monday, Jean and I and my darling wife are going out to put out some 75 bins around the community, and we're going to try and have new posters to go with the bins with the new information on the posters.
Okay.
And that's what we're going to try and do for Monday, and our poster gal will be back Monday, so she's going to have a list of things to do.
To catch up, okay. Does that, Lynn, is there anything else as far as WFCSS is concerned? Mike?
That's pretty much covering it. Just that we're already getting lots of calls, just so you know, people wanting to phone and register for screening and like for a hamper and that sort of thing. So it would be good if we did have the phone number on there so that everybody can know that that is another option for them, especially people out in the county.
Right, okay. Is there any other questions? Or? So your ask is the same ask as it was last year then?
Yes.
Okay, and the town of Strathmore, what did they put in last year, or their ask, can you remember?
Last year's amount,
Yeah,
I believe, was 2,800, yes.
okay,
And I believe, and I'll have to go back, but I was hoping that we would get them to match the amount of the Wheatland County. I've put a bug in one of the councillors' ears that it's not the same, so I'm doing that quietly.
I know that's always been, I can remember a time when we put it all in the county. And I can remember a time when you used to provide where all the donations come from, which was quite enlightening too, but that's been a few years since I've seen one of them.
Yeah.
Please. Could you use the mic, please? Oh, sorry. Please, yeah.
Sure.
Just to let you on, the mic's on, and then when you speak, these little cameras here catch you, so you can be recorded for prosperity.
That's probably because we had new chairperson, new changeover, and not everybody's aware of what the other person did. Dave Collins was very much a good chairperson, but he did a lot himself that nobody knew about. So we have to catch up on that. So we can certainly provide you with a list of donors. Yeah.
I don't think the list of donors is so important as for us. If you produce it for your own needs, then that would be fine to share it, but don't produce it just for our needs.
No, I'm sure.
We don't mean to
Darlene
provide
has it
extra
anyway.
work for you, but
No.
that's something your board maybe wants to talk about. But I'm sure in your past records, you would see some of those
Probably, yes.
probably
yeah.
as parts, okay.
But I'm secretary and I don't have them, so it has to be one of the things that Dave did. 'Cause,
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thanks for coming. It's very enlightening.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Would you guys like a copy of these notes?
You can just leave it with Margaret, there,
I
our
have a
secretary.
copy for you.
Okay.
And Tom, would you mind giving me a call when sometime? 901? Oh, thank you. 899. And I'll just chat you up about that.
This is
shovel.
being recorded, your call, so.
Yeah, that's okay. It's my name and numbers out there, unfortunately.
Do we have a motion to accept this information? Donna, all in favor? Carried. 11:45. We're back down to 2.2G. And I think that was a handout. 2.2G. Everyone find it? I'll give you time to read it, being it was handed out. forget where I was. Is it Jason's turn or Amber's turn? Jason's turn? Thank you.
I move that council adhere to current policy, practice, and precedents by not approving the request from the former councillor.
Okay, do you have any comments you want to add or questions?
I just find it funny, out of the 5 that weren't elected, there was only 1 to come in from somebody.
Okay. Ben, you have any comments? No? I'll hear. Tom, do you have any?
Well, sorry, I'm just not, I sort of understand, like, is this just is this a short-term request or is it a long-term request for, like,
For this individual, I would think it'd be long-term. I don't know at what age. I think Mr. MacArthur can enlighten us on how long this could carry on for.
We're looking at least 5 years. It's a long term. It's a long term. It's not like for a couple of months or anything like that. I should explain that as benefit holders, should you not resign or retire, you have the option to purchase through cooperators a continuation of the benefits. It comes from a different experience pile, and there might be a slightly higher premium for it, but that's the way it is in all industries. If you leave an employer who's providing benefits, the law requires that the insuring company provide you with a 31-day period to acquire benefits from them without incurring a health assessment. You would just continue on. And in fact, the program through cooperators is called Continue You. And the former Councillor Booth has been informed of the particular option. She's had discussions with our consultant, and subsequent to that, she looked towards us for this assistance. Excuse me. I think the issue is that she has seen in the past requests come forward, but these are from retiring employees or from people going on disability, long-term disability, who were not expected to come back ever. And in that situation, in recognition of long-term service where they've retired, then the council has given consideration to allow them to continue as a contributor to the plan. They would have to pay, of course, both halves of the premiums in order to do that. In particular, the concern I have as the HR person is this would not be a person who has retired or is on disability, and that would set a precedent for our employees to come to us and say, yeah, I'm gone now. You've terminated me or you've laid me off. I want to be on this. I want to be on this plan too. I want to continue the plan. Yeah, I know I have to pay for it, but it increases our risk exponentially in that case, for sure.
okay, just to make it clear, if at the end of 4 years, I'm no longer with, I get the heave-ho, or I choose not to run again. There is a plan in place that I could continue with, that I could continue having coverage, but I would just have to pick up it'd all come out of my own pocket?
In either case, yes. In either case. What's different about the path that former Councillor Booth is attempting to use is that path puts them into our experience bucket, if you wish. Our claims and any claims that she would have would go against our experience and thereby impact on our, how do I put it? Our rates and that sort of thing. On the Continue You program, she would go out onto the Continue You program. Her experience would go against a huge bucket that's controlled by cooperators. And there may not be the same sort of benefits that she would get from us, or the same extent of benefits that she would get from us. Okay? It's the same for employees. And if you, as a counselor, decided to retire out of the position, you would have the same opportunity as an employee to apply for that. That would not be an issue. It's when there's a termination per se. And God, I don't know how to. Okay, thank you. I'm not going to say what I was going to.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No? Jason's moved. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we have time for one more for the growth management meeting. If I can find it. Did you hand them out, Alan?
I can just speak
to
it.
that, please.
So it's during the convention. Sturgeon County had requested a representative from Wheatland County Council attend a Growth Management Board Rural Caucus meeting. We had one, when was that, Glenn? About 2 months ago? Yeah. In Edmonton that Glenn and I went to. I just confirmed with them, they only want to see the Reeve and one member of staff attend that at this meeting. There will be follow-up meetings, so then we can have Councillor Eichert and Councillor Clausen attend those as well. Okay. So just, that's the update I got. Okay. It's during convention, no motion is required. I just wanted to bring it forward, so.
Okay, for information then.
For information. You'll do a full report on that, I'm sure, to council. So.
Well, I thought I'd bring you along.
Well, I'll do a full report then.
Okay. I guess that was just for information. Sorry, I had different dreams, but I'm sure at one time we'll be able to get everyone together, and at least 4 of the ones that are affected, for sure. Motion to accept for information. Ben, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Oh, okay, we got one more. I got time. WFCSS conference. I was on the, I don't have request for decision because it's an emergent type issue. I was on WFCSS for the 13 years prior to here. And the conference starts tomorrow and the AGM. And I was registered to go, and so was Bernice registered to go. Bernice is not going for a different reason but she will be going. And I was registered, and then we had our organizational, and we got different members on FCSS. Lynn asked the new members if they can go to the conference, and they weren't able to attend. So being that it's paid for, I'm asking that I would be able to go and represent WFCSS at the conference and AGM. We need voting members there too. And I'm sure it'll be a once thing. FCSS conferences, I find very enlightening. They're a little different than the other ones, but anyway, that's my request. I'll throw it out there. Any questions or concerns? Ben, your turn. Question? Tom? Okay, I'll make that a motion that I be allowed to go for the overnights and whatnot.
I just wanted to thank you for being willing to still go and represent us. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to. It was just too short notice to make arrangements.
Overnights, I should give you a number. It's tonight, tomorrow night, and Thursday night, I think, is the last night. Tonight and Thursday night. So tonight's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, come home Friday. Yeah, 3 nights. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And I'm thinking that's close enough to lunchtime. We'll break for lunch.